What if, right now, you woke up and discovered that every single American, from billionaires to the homeless, suddenly had the exact same net worth, $250,000? No more Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk towering over the economy, no more poverty lines, no more student debt nightmares. Just a flat, equal wealth across all 330 million Americans. Sounds like utopia, right? So imagine, just for a moment, a world where every single person wakes up with exactly the same net worth, $250,000, no more, no less. On the surface, it sounds like the ultimate solution to inequality, a radical reset that wipes the slate clean. The rich are no longer rich, the poor are no longer poor, and everyone stands on the same financial ground. But let's dig beneath the surface, because the reality of such a seismic redistribution isn't just complicated. It's chaotic, unpredictable, and even terrifying. The first and most immediate fallout would come from the investment markets. Today, the top 10% of people own nearly 90% of the stock market. To create equality, these assets would have to be liquidated or forcibly devalued. The effect? A chain reaction that would dwarf any crash in history. Stock prices wouldn't just drop, they would evaporate, vaporized by the sheer volume of forced sales and the sudden disappearance of those who once propped them up. Pension funds, retirement accounts, and corporate investments would be gutted. The ripple would reach every corner of the financial world, and the shockwaves would be felt globally. But the carnage wouldn't stop there. Luxury industries, high-end real estate, private jets, designer brands depend on the spending power of the ultra-wealthy. When the top tier vanishes overnight, demand collapses. At the same time, the masses, now flush with cash, would be in no rush to spend hundreds of thousands on a watch or a handbag, especially once they realize that this is all they have to their name. The bottom would fall out of these markets, and entire industries would crumble. The psychological effects would be just as profound. People don't just differ in their bank balances, they differ in their habits, desires, and financial know-how. A former billionaire, now sitting on the same pile of cash as everyone else, still has something most don't: experience, skills, and a powerful network. These individuals could leverage their knowledge and connections to regain their footing rapidly. Meanwhile, others, suddenly handed more money than they've ever seen, might act impulsively, spending recklessly or making poor investments. Within months or even weeks, a new divide would emerge, not based on inheritance or privilege, but on behavior, discipline, and adaptability. Inflation would be the next beast to rear its head. With everyone suddenly able to buy a house or invest, the demand would instantly outstrip supply. Prices would skyrocket. Your $250,000 might buy you a modest home today, but tomorrow, it might barely cover a down payment. Those who move quickly would get ahead, while others would see their newfound equality eroded almost instantly. The value of money, supposedly equalized, would become wildly unequal depending on timing, access, and opportunity. Then there's the question of work. With everyone holding a financial cushion, who would want to take up jobs in cleaning, food delivery, or other essential yet often underpaid roles? The labor force would shrink overnight. Supply chains would break, restaurants would close, factories would halt, and even basic services like garbage collection and public transportation could come to a stop. Hospitals might struggle to staff their wards, utilities could falter, and the functioning of society would hang by a thread. The crisis would no longer be about wealth, but about the very systems that keep daily life running. Governments would be forced to intervene, desperately trying to control spending and stabilize the economy. Emergency measures might include limits on purchases, new taxes, or even freezing of markets. The result could be a pseudo-socialist regime, not by ideology, but by necessity, as authorities scramble to prevent runaway inflation and social collapse. And as formal systems falter, the black market would flourish. Not all assets can be measured in dollars. People would trade private knowledge, access, influence, and rare goods. Intangibles that don't appear on a balance sheet, but hold immense real-world value. Inequality would return, but in more shadowy and unpredictable forms. The currency of power would shift from dollars to data, from cash to connections. Meanwhile, innovation would stall. Why take risks, start businesses, or pour years into research if everyone is already comfortable? The drive that fuels entrepreneurship and technological advancement would sputter. Venture capital would evaporate. High-risk projects would go unfunded, and the engines of progress would grind to a halt. Over time, society would divide not just into the rich and poor, but into builders, those who see the new landscape as a chance to create, and consumers, those content to coast on their windfall. The cycle of inequality would begin anew, perhaps even faster than before. Education, too, would become a new dividing line. The few who invest their windfall in learning and skill building would quickly pull ahead, while those who do not would fall behind. The illusion of equality would shatter, revealing once again the deep, often invisible forces that shape opportunity and success. Banks would face an existential crisis. With no major assets to manage and no wealthy clients to serve, many would shrink or disappear. Interest rates would become unpredictable, lending could dry up, and traditional banking models would crumble. In their place, alternative forms of finance, cryptocurrency, bartering, peer-to-peer lending, would rise, but in a landscape of near-total chaos and little regulation. The Federal Reserve would confront a challenge unlike anything in history, managing a trillion-dollar reset with no precedent, no models, and no stability. The wrong move could trigger a global depression. America's financial system is the heart of the world's economy. Its pulse is felt everywhere. Countries holding U.S. bonds would panic, foreign investment would flee, and the dollar could collapse. The shock would be worldwide. Social trust would fray. Those who spent decades building wealth might feel betrayed, while others might expect the new equality to last forever. Political divisions would deepen, with radical movements springing up, some demanding a return to capitalism, others insisting on permanent equality through state control. The fabric of society would be strained to the breaking point, and through it all, a new elite would quietly emerge, not of money, but of information. Those with the right knowledge, tools, and strategies would rebuild their fortunes, proving that net worth is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. True wealth is not just a number. It's a blend of behavior, mindset, access, opportunity, discipline, and time. So, while the dream of instant equality is alluring, the reality is far messier and far more dangerous than it first appears. If everyone had $250,000 tomorrow, the world wouldn't become equal. It would become a ticking time bomb, testing not just our systems, but our values and our very definition of success. The lesson is clear. True fairness cannot be engineered overnight. It must be built carefully and thoughtfully over generations.